Hello again. This is Ramon, and I am back with, if I may, episode number 4 of 400. No, I'm just kidding. But episode number 4. I mean, who knows? We'll see. Ideally, yes, actually. So moving on from the previous episode, there are a few things at the end of this personality test that I kind of wanted to just go over that I found interesting. I didn't notice before, or just didn't give much attention to. First is they have to begin. We'll look at your personality profile. So there's four. They have 4 temperament types. The temperament types were created by psychologist David Kiersey. Oh, that's ironic. I was talking to my aunt, and she just shared one of his books. Would You Understand Me? I think. With me earlier today, so that's ironic. But yeah, by psychologist David Kiersey. I may be saying that wrong. Keirsey, who used them to describe essential themes in the way people think and behave. Temperament is a broad way of categorizing people than personality type, and is thus helpful as a quick way of understanding what drives people. Each temperament type describes a particular way of approaching the world. The first type are the empaths. Empath personality types are creative, imaginative, compassionate, focused on the possibilities for people and society. They want to heal other people, connect on a deep level, and use their unique style of expression to change the world. That's funny. It's like the theme of all my content so far. And yes, INFJ tend to be it's stereotypical, but very on point for INFJ to be very empathetic. Next is the theorist temperament. Theorist personality types are analytical, critical, questioning, and focused on innovative ideas. The way they want to use their powers of logic and reason to overhaul systems, improve efficiency, and manifest their visions of what could be. It's crazy to it's so funny to see I say something in a certain way, and then I go and read about it, and boom, it's described using the exact same words that I initially used. I love that. It's funny. It's awesome. Third is the preservers. Preserver personality types are sensible, organized, stable, and focused on upholding traditions and institutions. They want to ensure that things are done correctly, that rules are followed, and that people take their proper place in society. And lastly, the fourth is the responders. Responder personality types are adaptable, down to earth, practical, and focused on living in the moment. They want to develop useful skills, master the physical world, and enjoy all the sensory pleasures that life has to offer. And so, hold on, there's a graph I'm going to blow up and give you guys sorry. I have one hand right now, so it's kind of difficult for me to hold my mic and then as well as transition. So that's why there's a little scuffling in the background of the previous podcast as well as this one. 1 second. Empathy, I fall into 48 percentile in that temperament. Theorist, 36%. Preserver, 10%, and responder, 5%. And I'd say for me that's pretty accurate. I'm very empathetic. That for sure. That's probably for sure number 1. Theorist is definitely close number 2. Out of these temperaments. Yeah, those are both very accurate. And then the other 2, 10 and 5, that also seems pretty accurate as far as. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on in those respects. Let's see. Oh, so they have your scores and the 16 personality types. So seeing how my scores match up against the other 16 types. So of course, INFJ, the counselor, is my number one. Um, the introverted or extroverted counterpart, the ENFJ, the teacher. I'm a 70% match. INTJ, 77% match. INTJ, the mastermind. ENTJ, the commander, 60%. ENFP, the champion, 51% match. INFP, the healer, 67% match. INTP, the architect, 57% match. ENTP, the inventor, a 41% match. ESFP, the performer, 27% match. I'm definitely not a censor. ISFP, the composer, 43% match. ISTP, the craftsman, a 33% match. ESTP, the dynamo, 17% match. ESFJ, the provider, 46% match. ISFJ, the protector, 62. ISTJ, the inspector, 52. And the supervisor, ESTJ, 36. And so, yeah, I feel this is also pretty accurate for me. I have questioned many times and I think a lot of INFJ do this as well, with this type specifically, but I've often questioned when I'm in the more rational sense of myself, the more thinking sense of myself, if I am actually an INTJ as opposed to an INFJ. But I've done some research as well, and I definitely am an INFJ, but I do have tendencies towards INTJ, as INFJ is 86% match, and then INTJ is 77, my second highest. ENFJ, I think, when I initially took it was the 16 personalities test, and this was like over 10 years ago. This was back in like 2013, 2014, maybe 2014, 2015. I think I got ENFJ. And I think it was ENFJ because at that time, I was younger. I was a little more outgoing than I am for sure. And most of my outside involvement was at work with a small group of coworkers who I got along with really well and was very open with. Probably too open, but they're like friends forever. Like I'm friends with them even to this day. So with a few of them, with the originals, the OGs, and then like going out to the club basically. So and when I went out, I literally would just go out and like dance, like hip hop dancing, by myself most of the time for the longest time for years, and I really enjoyed it, and so I think due to one, the fact that I would go out all the time and really enjoyed it, and two, the fact that and I didn't party or do much when I was much younger. So this was like I was 22, 23. So it was me kind of coming into my young adult self and times I missed out as a teenager that a lot of other people, like they're doing similar things as a teenager. So this was my time, me catching up catching up for a good time's sake. But yeah, as well as input, because I took this test at work, I'm pretty sure. I know I did. If I didn't, no, I did. So I remember, they kind of gave some input as I read the questions. I kind of read them out loud. So some of the input was kind of swayed by outside opinions. So it may have been originally an INFJ too, if those two things weren't in play. And I think those are the two things that gave me that initial result of INFJ. I believe it was INFJ. It was INFJ or INFP, but I think it was probably, looking at this, it was probably, it was ENFJ or ENFP. And looking at this, I believe it was for sure ENFJ. But yeah, and then just looking at my two lowest matches, which would be the Dynamo and ESTP, which, yeah, complete opposite personality type in every respect, so that's understandable. And then the performer. Yeah, performer. Hold on, sorry. Yeah, the performer, the dynamo, and the performer. And the performer is an ESFP. So yeah, makes sense. And moving forward, if I may. So then it follows basically a focus specifically on the generalities of the INFJ personality type. So it says you're guided by a deep considered set of personal values. You're intensely idealistic and can clearly imagine a happier and more perfect future. You can become discouraged by the harsh realities of the present. You're typically motivated and persistent in taking positive action nonetheless. You feel an intrinsic drive to do what you can to make the world a better place. Accurate. Your core values: idealism, yes. Authenticity, yes. Perceptiveness, which is ironic because we're judgers as opposed to perceivers. But so a value that focuses on perceptiveness is interesting. But I don't think it's. I realize I don't think it means it in that way. Sorry for all my stuttering. And then the last one's intimacy. Also true. For me, your key motivators: inspiring positive change, fostering cooperation, understanding others, and finding meaning in work and relationships. All very true. You want a meaningful life and deep connections with other people. You do not tend to share yourself freely, except via this podcast, but appreciate emotional intimacy with a select committed few. Although your rich inner life can sometimes make you seem mysterious or private to others, you profoundly value authentic connections with people you trust. You have a unique ability to intuit others' emotions and motivations. Sorry, got hung up on that word. And will often know how someone else is feeling before the person knows himself. You trust your insights about others and have strong faith in your ability to read people. Although you are sensitive, you are also reserved. You are a private sort and are selective about sharing intimate thoughts and feelings. Also very accurate. It's funny, I just read a meme a few minutes ago, INFJ meme. It was like INFJ facts. And it was like, few people will like an INFJ, but an INFJ will like even fewer. Like, oh, that's accurate. How others see you. Yeah, ironic too. You often appear quiet, caring, and sensitive, and may be found listening alternatively to someone else's ideas or concerns. You are highly perceptive about people and want to help others achieve understanding. You're not afraid of complex personal problems. In fact, you're quite complex yourself, and have a rich inner life that few are privy to. You reflect at length on issues of ethics and feel things deeply. Because you initially appear so gentle and reserved, you may surprise others with your intensity when one of your values is threatened or called into question. Your calm exterior belies the complexity of your inner world. Belies? I think belies. Bellies. Regardless. Because you're such a complex person, you may be reluctant to engage with others who might not understand or appreciate you, and can thus be hard to get to know. Can thus be good. Man, I'm sorry, guys. I guess I'm crashing a little bit. It's fine. Being hard on myself. Although you want to get along with others and support them in their goals, you are fiercely loyal to your own systems and values, and will not follow others down a path that does not feel authentic to you. When you sense your values are not being respected, and when your intuition tells you that someone's intentions are not pure, you are likely to withdraw. Also true. Communication style, you're reserved about communication. I don't know how accurate this is for me. Well, as initially and when I first learned about being an INFJ and saw my nature in general, I mean, for the most part, yes. I am not really reserved or hesitant about communicating for communication's sake, not some, yes. But if I feel that something needs to be communicated or is worth communicating and has value has value, then I don't really hesitate to communicate it. And two, it's because, in part, maybe too, because I realized how efficiently and effectively that I can communicate at times. Like, that I can communicate when the need arises. But I want it to have value and meaning in the circumstance. Otherwise, yes, I will reserve the right to speak and uphold my Fifth Amendment. You are a careful, supportive listener and search for meaning in information you take in. You think deeply and need time to process and evaluate before you are ready to share your ideas. I'm going to discuss this a little more too. One thing with the Myers-Briggs typology is it's that differs for sure from, I know, the Enneagram and maybe others as well, is it can be, and it's worse, I think, with the 16 personalities, which is why a lot of people will refer you to other testing for this particular test. And the reason is the perspective of this theory is could potentially be overly positive. Like, of course, we want to look at the good in ourselves and see the good in ourselves. At the same time, we want to look at the struggles in ourselves in the same light. It really dives into what's good about you and why it's good and all this. But it does often fail or fall short in expressing the dangers or the shadow. Carl Jung really got into the shadow, and that's something I hope I'll get into for sure in the future too. But into your shadow self, which is basically the part of you that your mind almost suppresses and hides from your conscious self. It's the part of you that you don't really like. It's the dark side of yourself. It's it's your weaknesses basically. It's the opposite of all these things that they name. And I was thinking about in respect to the communication style specifically, and based on a conversation I had earlier today, this communication style it's accurate, but there's some darkness in it that can be in it. And though INFJ can be very altruistic by nature, they can also be very evil. The same ability to do good that they have an equivalent ability to do bad. The same ability they have to uplift the world, equivalently they can light the world on fire. And this is seen through people like Hitler, who was supposedly an INFJ, more than likely an INFJ. And I realized this in myself, and almost for the most part, it's as a defense mechanism due to past pain, trauma, and hurt. But part of the reason that I am a careful, supportive listener and search for meaning in information I take in is to protect myself. A large portion of it, I would say, more often than not, it's more to protect myself than it is to do good for other people. Ideally, it would be solely to do good for other people, but the world is pretty cold and pretty harsh at times. And so many of the things that make up our personality are really our mind's way of protecting us from previously traumatic experiences, especially in our childhood and early development, namely. But the innate response is that. And so then the dark side of the communication style is that we do use it to protect ourselves more than anything. And I realized that because I am such a good listener and really dive into understanding other people, I have an ability to misuse that information or abuse that information. The potential is there. More often than not, I don't do it. And when I do it, it's usually in response to someone pushing me too far. And I realize, like, it sounds cold and it sounds really, like, I don't know, conceited, like in my head, full of myself. But at the same time, I know a lot of other INFJ can relate. I've seen and I've read and heard how being an INFJ and like you see through people, like you have like X-ray vision. So when it comes to people pushing me like that, like I could literally destroy people mentally, psychologically, if I wanted to. Like there are very few times, and it's usually when the famous INFJ door slam occurs, that I will push every button that I know that person has. Or poke at every soft point that I know. And normally they're very deep. And the other problem comes in that sometimes I'm not trying to do that, or I accidentally take it too far. So I push a button that I know is a button, and maybe I just don't realize how sensitive of a button it is. And I push it at just the wrong time, and I realize and have to catch myself. And most of the time it works out okay, I'd say, I of course show strong, like, remorse, I'm very apologetic and, do what I can to make up for it and stay away from it moving forward, unless the time arises that I need to pull it out. And I realize that the closer that I am to someone, the more power that I have to do such. And it's not anything that I want to do, and it's really a defense mechanism. And the other part of it is that I can simultaneously become very cold and turn on the thinking portion of myself, which the thinking portion of myself grabs onto. The thinking portion of myself takes the rationale that they're attempting to use on me and flips it on them. And it's cold. Yeah. It's poisonous. It's toxic. It can be very bad. And like I said, it's very infrequent that ever happens, and it's been a while since it has happened. But there are circumstances and things that happen in life sometimes that, or I get poked, and it reminds me of that ability. And it's ironic because I don't have to touch them. It's just in pure communication. It's just in taking knowledge that I have and sharing it the same way I am now, just in a way that I know will have psychological effects on the person, negative psychological effects on the person they're being shared with. But not to be too cold. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed with this as an INFJ, and specifically, and with the Myers-Briggs typology. A relationship style. You have a strong sense of integrity and are closest with those who respect your values, very much so. You are supportive and encouraging and love to help your friends and family by sharing your creative ideas for their personal development. Your creativity also helps you to avoid conflicts with your problem-solving skills, helping you to maintain a harmonious environment. And you desire deep emotional connections and work hard to build intimacy and authenticity in your relationships and friendships, to be honest. It can be hard that deepness that INFJ seek makes it hard sometimes to build friendships because the potential is always there. Like if you get to know someone long enough, through baby steps, most anyone you can find that intimacy or closeness with proper mutual respect and value. But INFJs are like on go mode all the time. So we take interest and we latch on, and it's hard. And we have to consciously hold ourselves back and limit ourselves so as to not overwhelm, the party receiving our intense curiosity. And two, from that's shows in our being the counselor, the counseling type. We also have to be careful about not being too much of a problem solver. Not because sometimes people aren't always looking for an answer, so we have to find in ourselves a way to judge and balance by listening, by constructively listening, actively listening, to see if the person needs and is looking for in that certain circumstance, an answer, a solution, or maybe just, someone to vent to. But the intent shows for sure for INFJ. INFJ communicate by expressing quiet support, recognizing potential possibilities, seeking authentic connections, processing ideas internally. Yeah, and processing ideas internally. I think a lot of that too is more so how we're connected, but they have this section that says you connect by being open and authentic, sharing emotions, encouraging inner growth, and organizing time with loved ones. Maybe so. In that sense, I feel a lot of the ways that it says we communicate are also how I prefer to be communicated to. But that's kind of tough to ask for from someone else. Personality at work. Your ideal work environment focused on humanitarian values, fostering learning and advancement, supportive and encouraging, organized and efficient. Your ideal working roles: visionary idealist, gentle teacher, compassionate humanitarian, individual advocate. Leadership style, your leadership strengths: inspiring cooperation, encouraging personal development, valuing diverse perspectives, and sharing a global vision. Teamwork style: accommodating to the needs of others, fulfilling commitments, developing creative solutions, and organizing people and ideas. And then there's a list of top careers. I won't go into that, but I feel like for me, most of them are interesting. Some of them are not interesting at all. Like, I just don't think I would enjoy it personally. But maybe other INFJ, like, I would maybe be good at it, but I just wouldn't enjoy it. So, and I feel like maybe for other INFJ they would feel the same. But some of them, like graphic designers on here, something I've looked into as well already. So, musician, technical writer, stuff like that. Like a lot of the stuff I'm interested in, it's just finding an avenue to get into it. Just because you want to be in something, it's sometimes a little harder to, especially when you're an INFJ with multiple passions and bounces around different careers a lot of times. Like me, it's kind of hard. You kind of always start at entry level, so trying to bounce around while continuing to grow is probably the real part that's difficult. But here's to hoping. It's part of what makes me me. And if I may, there's one last thing with this test that I want to go over. One last piece of information they shared. And it's two, I guess. Opportunities for excellence and potential pitfalls. Opportunities for excellence. Use your emotional sensitivity to maintain an atmosphere of cooperation. Be an advocate for others to make sure everyone's input is valued. Seek out opportunities to put your understanding of people to good use. Your natural insight will help you to create effective solutions. Keep the lines of communication open. You are straightforward and honest, which inspires trust. Find ways to exhibit your loyalty to people. Causes that matter to you. Your work ethic and persistence will earn you a reputation as a team player. Pitfalls. Become more comfortable with giving others constructive criticism. It is often the best way for people to learn and grow. For me personally, I think the opposite is the bigger pitfall, at least something that I struggle with more, and it's receiving constructive criticism. And two, because I don't know, maybe it's a bit my judging too, because you know, my cynicism, but I don't want unrequested criticism. For one, for two, most of the time people are criticizing me. It's not to benefit me. It's not constructive. Most of the time people criticize each other in general. It's not constructive. And if someone doesn't know me nor understand my understanding of whatever the topic is, and they try to give me constructive criticism, it still doesn't come across right for me. But I feel I should be a little more open. Like, the second someone goes to criticize me, especially in times when I'm like vulnerable and not sure of myself, it's so irritating. Because it's like they don't give me the time to learn before they criticize what I'm doing. Like, let me experiment and find some comfortability before you do. But that's just me. I'm curious to find how other INFJ feel about that. The next, try to tailor your message to your audience. You like ideas, theories, but others need details and specifics, in order to get behind your cause. Don't be afraid to manage people. I agree with the manage people. That's kind of tough. I always feel like bad, especially if I don't have that role. Like, it's not a labeled or given role, but there have been plenty of times where it's not a labeled or given role, but I've needed to do so, and then times where I've needed to do so, and did, and then times where I needed to do so and didn't. And in both times, it's kind of awkward and hard to do, especially under those circumstances. You often shy away from giving people direction, but sometimes people need guidance in order to be productive. Make sure that your efforts are not taken for granted. You often prefer not to speak up for yourself, but you may become resentful if you are given the recognition are not given the recognition you deserve. This is something that I realized really genuinely recently, especially listening to Jordan Peterson, because he talks a lot about this, and I guess somewhat of a fear, this fear of becoming resentful, because it being resentful removes a lot of opportunity for you. If you're so focused on how wrong something is, then how can you fully experience it and make anything out of it if that's your only focus? And that's, I feel, the pitfall of resentfulness. And I with work especially, a couple weeks ago actually, I've started doing it with my last job, and then I'm continuing it, but being more open being more standing up for myself, basically. And at the end of the day, it at least feels good for me, because at least someone, and someone is me, stood up for myself, even if it's not received well, or, it's not, if it's not received well, or, you don't get a response or that kind of thing. But I remember a couple weeks ago, and actually on several occasions, I've written into work about some issues that I've had, and it's very intense, but extremely professional. And a couple weeks ago, I did the same thing, and it's very it is clear, clear. My displeasure is voiced clearly, and the reasoning for it voiced very clearly and very professionally. So nothing that that's necessarily going to get me fired in an instant, but it's not going to make me look good to the higher ups. When in corporate hierarchies, it tends to be traditionally, we're above you, so you just do what we say and don't ask questions. And it's not so much that way now, at least actively. In a passive way it is, and that's the business politics side of it that I'm talking about. But I did write a very sternly stated email to my manager and supervisor about, I mean, yeah, just how I was feeling. I mean, about feeling like I'm not being given the recognition that I deserve. Um, and that I was clear about, what I wanted out of the job in the beginning, and that since I've started, every opportunity that's come up, I've been declined. Or the opportunity's been removed, or it's like always something, like always some excuse or reason. And the same thing happened at a previous job, and this went on for years at a previous job. On this one, I've only been at for just under a year, and I guess in a way I'm a little angsty, but it's because I don't want to end up in the same circumstance again. I want to improve and progress. And then if not, then I just don't want to care. I'm going to do what I need to do and find a way to, either find another job or find a way to work for myself. And, ideally I would like to work for myself. So, but, until I find the money and avenue to do that, I will keep looking, put my efforts elsewhere. And if I may, moving on to the Big 5 personality test. The 5 factors of personality. The first factor is openness. Openness describes an individual's tendency to think in complex, abstract ways. Ironic. People who are high in openness are abstract thinkers, while people who are low in openness are concrete thinkers. My score, 98% out of 100 for openness. The average score is 58%, so I'm extremely high in openness. Very comfortable with abstract ideas. Enjoy talking and thinking about theories and concepts that are unproven. Especially, appreciative of creative, original, innovative ideas, and enjoy thinking about the future and what it might hold. Because they appreciate ideas for their own sake, they usually enjoy the arts and other cultural pursuits. People who are low in openness are concrete, straightforward thinkers. They distrust ideas and theories and do not have practical real world that do not have real practical real world practical applications. They prefer tradition and conventional ways over new, untested ideas. They are more realistic than creative and often have difficulty imagining things that they have not personally experienced. Because of this, they may be interested in trying new experiences, preferring instead to stick with what they know. People who are high in openness are creative, unconventional, imaginative, original, artistic. People low in openness are practical, traditional, conventional, conservative, and habitual. And that openness really shows in, and this is a good demonstration. Not really demonstration, but can also be. It's similar to what how I described how I think in the first podcast. How it's very like a spider web, and it's that abstract thought process that I have that's extremely high. 98% out of 100, so extremely high. And therefore, yeah, can often find it troublesome to. It's weird. I think maybe I've gotten good at it at this point for me, but people, especially other people with, like, in general, and I still find it troublesome sometimes, but clearly getting across my thought patterns. Maybe that's what it is. Like, yeah, explaining my thought pattern on how I came to a certain conclusion, it's very lengthy. Like I can do it. It's just very lengthy. It's hard for me to do it in a short, um, concise manner, and still feel that I'm accurate and being true to the real answer. Whereas other people, I feel it's so specific. And that's also something I have trouble with in understanding others from time to time. It's for me, and it's kind of a little epiphany moment itself, but like I think so complex, the way my mind works, that when other people like literally come to conclusions through such simple thought processes, it just like astounds me. And I guess in some ways I have like a superiority complex because I am such a great abstract thinker and have such great openness. But similarly, I have like a burden complex and other things too. But it's not a god complex, at least. But no. Anyways, yeah, like, and maybe this is just a quick realization for me that it's just a difference in thinking. It's not that one is necessarily worse than the other. It's not that mine is better and they're just not meeting it, or that theirs is better and I'm just too complicated. It's just different ways of thinking. And I feel this probably kind of correlates to and coincides with my ADHD, and maybe a small sign of why it's so intense, as far as my mind just just like going nonstop. But yeah, it's really, it's nice to, I'm very, very, like, I've read a lot in Myers-Briggs, so kind of reading these others, it's like another fresh perspective. And even though some of it is the same, it's different at the same time. Like, it's a different description of a similar perspective, and I really like it. The second one is the second aspect, the second, they call it factor. That's what they call them. The second factor is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness describes a person's tendency to be persistent and determined in achieving their goals. People who are high in conscientiousness tend to work hard to put their plans into action, while people who are low in this trait tend to change course and get distracted easily. Mine is 67. Average is 67 out of 100. Average is 55. Yeah, and persistence, I can be very persistent. I think subliminally I'm very persistent with with dreams or ambitions that are much further out in the future. Like, they're always there in the back of my head, and everything that I do and all the precursor or smaller dreams I still see as stepping stones towards those bigger dreams. Like, they still fall in line, and if they don't, then it's not something I really show much vested interest in at all. But yeah, highly conscientious people are hardworking and responsible. They have a high degree of willpower and resist temptation and distractions to stay focused on their goals. I do, but if I feel lost, then it makes it very difficult, or unfulfilled, or like I'm not achieving something, then it makes it very difficult for me to do that. And that's where my ADHD kind of kicks in as well, in the routine part and conscientious people are able to delay gratification, but a lot of it, okay, I'm kind of like assessing myself while reading this, sorry, but, and trying to make, good correlations, obviously, but yeah, I need to read more about this for myself. Yeah, low conscientious people are less interested in long-term goals and more interested in responding in the moment. Yeah, I'm very future-oriented, for sure. High conscientious people, orderly, dependable, determined, ambitious, and dutiful. Low conscientious, spontaneous, adaptable, impulsive, disorganized, and haphazard. Extroversion is the third factor, aspect. Extroversion describes a person's tendency to be energized by being around other people, versus by being by oneself. Extroverts are energized by socializing with others, while introverts, people with low extroversion, are energized by spending some time alone. And one thing too with extroversion introversion that's very interesting to me is, and something I realized too recently with the ADHD thing, is people with introverted people tend to have lower energy thresholds. Yeah, sorry. Introverted people tend to have lower energy thresholds, and while as extroverted people have higher energy thresholds. And it makes sense because if you are an introvert, you don't need as much energy. When you're by yourself, you don't consume the same energy that you do when you're surrounded by other stimulants, other people. So it makes sense. It's kind of ironic and interesting. But my score is 40% out of 100. Average is 51, and so yeah, I'm introverted. That's pretty obvious now. I am somewhat ambiverted, but I'm much more introverted than I used to be. Highly extroverted people are outgoing, energetic, and friendly. Introverted people are reserved, calm, and low key. People high in extroversion are enthusiastic, energetic, excitable, friendly, and gregarious, while people low in extroversion are reserved, calm, aloof, haha, I like that word and it's very fitting, introspective, and quiet. Agreeableness is the fourth aspect. Agreeableness describes an individual's tendency to put the needs of others ahead of their own. Highly agreeable people are mostly concerned with getting along with others. People low and agreeable are mostly concerned with serving their own interests. I am 67% agreeable, which is slightly above average at 63. People high in agreeableness are accommodating, helpful, sympathetic, selfless, and altruistic. People low in agreeableness, competitive, argumentative, self-interested, rational, and brash. The fifth and final aspect is neuroticism. Neuroticism describes an individual's response to stress. Highly neurotic people are susceptible to anxiety, depression, anger, and other negative emotions. When subjected to stressful conditions, people with low neuroticism resist stress and tend not to experience many negative emotions. I feel like a lot of INFJ would have a tendency to be pretty heavy in neuroticism, as well as anyone who struggles with depression in general. At the same time, yeah, I feel like neuroticism in the nature versus nurture discussion is really based off of, like, very severely off of upbringing, the environment you were raised in, not just immediate environment, like around your family, but also how people outside of your family were to you. And I feel like people with high neuroticism tend to have had a very traumatic, to put it simply, traumatic childhood. People didn't respond to them very well for there's countless reasons. But yeah, whereas people with low, like, I feel like to have low neuroticism, like, you had to have had a pretty, like, good movie quality childhood, and I envy you. But my score is 62.5%, where average is 54. Highly neurotic people struggle with negative emotion. They frequently feel anger, sadness, anxiety, self-consciousness, and other difficult feelings. People who are low are resilient and do not react easy to stress. They experience few negative emotions and cope well when life is difficult. They easily overcome stressful situations and get back on track. They are not often sad, angry, or depressed and generally feel confident in themselves. At the same time, I feel like people who normally deal with stress sadness, and anger, therefore high in neuroticism, would be better at regularly handling it, ideally, as opposed to people who don't normally get bothered by it, but when does hit, it's pretty intense and therefore less easy to handle. But I'm not sure. That's just my why. Something I'll have to dive into, and maybe maybe a listener or listeners can give me some feedback on that and their ideas. This reminds me too of a conversation I had earlier today. Or there was a point, and give me a second. I don't remember what it was, so if I may continue. People high in neuroticism are vulnerable, unstable, anxious, moody, and self-conscious. People low are stable, resilient, optimistic, self-confident, and carefree. Oh, I remember what it was. And it's because of the neuroticism. And the statement that they experience few negative emotions. And I used to feel like people who like almost never experience negative emotions, like the people who are like happy all the time, like they annoy me so much. Like literally, like they would just get under my skin. And my grandmother was this way. And I love her. And I appreciate her. But for me, it's like, it makes them hard to trust. It's like, what? Like, no, like nobody has life that easy that you're not damaged, basically. Like, it's my own inner trauma talking. My own inner damage talking, and like, it's crazy to realize. It's funny, ironic. But yeah, but I guess with this explanation, it actually is a realistic thing. It's reasonable that someone does not experience many negative emotions. Core pattern. This circumplex describes the essential role you take on approaching the world. This role is a reflection of your core values, motivations, and motivations, as well as the way you think about things. So the top circumplex, it's like a sphere, but instead of like percentiles, it's broken down into sections, and depending on how much that section correlates to me, the section's bigger than others. So one's really small, one's really big, and then the others are in between. So the biggest one, let me start with the smallest one. The smallest one, or the lowest, is logical mechanic. Logical mechanic ensures accuracy. Sorry, my dogs are in the background barking. Logical mechanic ensures accuracy and efficiency in logical systems. Uses proven methods to accomplish real-world goals. My second lowest is practical caretaker. Helps other people in practical everyday ways. Uses established institutions to maintain stability and security. And yeah, those two don't correlate very well with me. Analytical thinker is the second from the top. I don't know how to say it. Solves logical problems with rational, complex analysis. Thinks about innovative ways to improve systems. And that sounded like the end. It wasn't the end, but that's the end of it. And the largest piece of the pie is empathetic idealist. Uses insight and creativity to help others. Thinks about how the world could be better and a more beautiful place. And this is very relatable. Intrapersonal pattern. This circumplex describes the style you use in relating to others. The style governs the way you socialize and develop relationships. Those 4 are, starting with my weakest, commanding leader. Yikes. No, just kidding. Takes command of situations with blunt, dominant style. Likes to be in charge. That's not me, but in reading, out of curiosity and because of the popularity of it, my zodiac, I did this little app a while back. But you put in the date, your birthday and the time and all this kind of thing, and it gives you like. I'm not really into it like that. Like I know my main zodiac, so I guess my sun. And then but there's like the moon and all the other planets and the rising and all this. But I was looking at it and with some friends and going over the results, and one of them said I'm power hungry, and I was like, I guess that's true, but at the same time, it's not that it's not that driving of a force. I don't think, but it made me question myself, unironically. But seeing my weakest here is a commanding leader, then I guess I was right, on point. Anyways, like I said, I don't give it that much credit. Anyways, it's just curiosity. So the second lowest is aloof thinker. Maintains independence and distance from others. Selective about relationships. All of these are are relatively close in size. So, as opposed to the initial, where they were very different in size. The lowest two were very small, and the upper two one was maxed out in the circle, and one's two away. So, to give sort of a visual, this one, they all start around the middle of the circle. So, they're all middle ground. So, I guess that too means that I'm a little more of a commanding leader than I could be, even though it's my weakest, I'm still decent. Basically, I have decent interpersonal skills. This is just the one that I pull out least often. But it's middle, low middle ground. So if I need to, I can. And then aloof thinker is just over middle ground. Maintain independence and distance from others. That's accurate. I do that when circumstances call for it. Then the third, I guess the second largest is social butterfly. Is friendly and amiable, loves people and approaches them without hesitation. If I'm feeling good about if I'm in a good place in life, yes. If I'm not, no. And then the largest is sympathetic ear. Gentle and kind, tends to be quiet and appreciate close, supportive relationships. And ignore the man behind the curtain if you can hear him. Sorry about that. Or the woman. Correction. But hey. Then there's social pattern. This circumplex describes how you position yourself in relationships to social groups. Your pattern shows how you feel you fit in within the larger scale of society. This one, strong variances. The lowest two are very small, and then the largest two are very big. One is maxed out. The top one's maxed out. So the lowest is easy belonging. Feels a sense of belonging in social circles. Enjoys being surrounded by similar people and fitting in. Easily finds commonality with others. And that's very accurate. This thing is very small. There's rings. So this one's at 1.5 rings. So yeah, it's very small. And yes, I do not feel that I belong easily anywhere. Struggle of an INFJ for sure. And a type 4. So yeah, it's fitting. The next largest, which is 1, 2, 3, three rows out. Safety in numbers, seeks stability and belonging, wants to feel similar to others to ease anxiety, takes comfort in traditional institutions. And that's very accurate too. Neither of those am I very... Yeah, I don't fit the large scale of society. Never have. So, it's not surprising. The second largest is gleeful rebellion. Very accurate. Enjoys a feeling of uniqueness, embraces alternative cultures, and takes pleasure in being different. Like showing individuality. And very accurate. That's 1 away from maxed. Actually, 1.5 away from maxed. And my maxed out one, the top one, is anxious alienation. Feels a sense of being uncomfortably different. Rarely meets others with common interests. often feels alienated and excluded from society. And this is very true. And I'm sure getting to know me, like it's obvious, like how, like it's obvious that it's obvious, like um, and it is what it is, like but it's true, and it's just another facet of what makes me me, and but it's also why when I do meet people that connect and like with the responses that I've gotten from my podcast thus far, like I appreciate it so intensely. And another disturbance, phone call. Sorry, I'm doing this late in the evening, so everyone's home and there's a lot going on, and I'm wrapping up. So, thank you for your patience. The next is communication pattern, and that goes without saying. Pretty much, we understand. Again, this one, the lowest two are very small, and the largest two are exactly the same as the previous, so very big. Communication. Open lines is my lowest. Freely communicates to keep everyone informed. Recounts events. Yeah, that's the privacy showing. Shares information and compares experiences with others. Yeah, not frequently at all. Number 2 lowest. Concise facts. Communicates when necessary to convey specific information. Dislikes talking for the sake of talking. Keeps discussions to essential facts. I don't know. Yeah, and that's the lowest of the two as far as communication. I guess that's no, that's true because I do have a tendency to overshare, which is a natural INFJ tendency as well as other types. Like I'm just always reflecting INFJ, but I really like understanding and getting to know other types as well. So this is just all kind of a getting to know me, and in the future I look forward to kind of diving into other people, other types, other subjects. So please enjoy this while it lasts. Second largest is shared vision. Enjoys expressing ideas and visions. Loves to brainstorm and discuss possibilities. Tends to focus on future goals and abstract ideas. Fitting. And the last and largest is thoughtful insights. Thinks deeply before speaking. Yes. Thoughtfully shares insights once they have been carefully considered. Tends to focus on interpretations. That's so true, especially in like a lot of my friendships. Like close friendships, I'll think deeply about stuff and then just randomly one day, open up about it and share it. It hits me, in the moment, and they're like, wow. A lot of my friends, like my few friends, like they love that about me. And I love that they love that about me. I really value that someone actually appreciates it because I can see how it would also be seen as pretty weird. Emotional pattern. This circumflex describes, of course, emotional experience. Pattern of emotional experience. So this one, they all start around halfway to max. So they're all relatively close to one another, and pretty heavy. But obviously, yeah, I'm an emotional person. Who'd have thought? It's expressed clearly through my mere voice. But my lowest is mostly sunny, low energy threshold, not the brightest of the bunch. As far as emotional brightness, not intelligence, clearly. But anyways, tends to be mostly happy and content. Shrugs off stress, and easily finds things to look forward to. Most emotional experiences are positive. My second smallest, it's very close to be honest. I can't really. Very close. Between full spectrum and even keel. Full spectrum is slightly let me go. Even keel is the second to lowest, but very close. With the other. And even keel, mostly calm and placid, experiencing few emotional spikes, is rarely ever very happy or very sad. Emotions do not play a very large role in part of experience. That's so true, and it's really weird to a lot of people as well. I love new experiences, as I brought up. I want new experiences as often as possible, with some stability, of course, in between. But I crave it. At the same time, my emotional expression and my emotional experience during these new experiences is usually very placid and very straightforward and even keel. as it says. So that's very accurate for me, and especially externally. I externally, and that'll be shown too in this next one, which is full spectrum. Feels a full range of emotions from bursts of pure joy to the deepest sadness. Mood changes easily, and emotions are a central part of life. So the even keel kind of goes more along the lines of my outward expression of emotion. My outward expression of emotion tends to be very even keel, even in environments where I'm happy or very sad. However, internally, on the full spectrum of emotion, I do feel a lot of emotion. And I think a lot of INFJ can relate to that. And yeah, the normally, no, for sure, like the majority of emotion that I feel is not displayed through my outward self, for lack of better terminology. Most, and then the highest is mostly gloomy, so the opposite of mostly sunny. Tends to be somewhat glum. Rarely feels strong, positive emotions like joy or excitement, and easily becomes anxious, sad, or angry. And yes, that's true, but also understandable. And we got 3 more, and I'll wrap it up. Then followed by those. Get back to my point. Wait. Okay. Motivation pattern. Describes how you get and stay motivated. These are all between halfway to full and full. My lowest is carefree fun, prefers to avoid responsibility and enjoy life, tends to abandon difficult projects when alternatives appear. And feels little pressure to work. So yeah, that's pretty accurate. That's going to be low for me. I mean, there's times for sure, but overall, no, I need some productivity in my life. Second lowest. These are 2 also very close. One's just a halfway above the other. So the second lowest, confident drive, enjoys chasing goals and realizing successes. Confident in own potential to achieve, works hard and expects accomplishments. That's true. Next is scattered anxiety, also very close in hand with confident drive. Has a difficult time focusing on work and staying motivated. Tends to worry about outcomes and have a hard time getting started. Also very accurate. Also part of a infamous INFJ cycle, and as well as ADHD cycle. So makes sense. Anxious diligence is my largest in this category. Highly motivated to achieve goals and avoid errors. Perfectionist. Tendency to overwork. Feels relief when projects are completed correctly. This is, yes. Like, I am very perfectionistic by nature, and I do my best to not put it on other people. But even still, when I'm successful I'm never perfect, of course, no one's perfect, but when I'm successful at doing a job that I can at least feel good about, normally that to me is better. Like, normally a job that I can at least feel good about to me is like great to other people. Like, to me it's good. Like, I feel good about it. It's not the best. It could be better. It can always be better. But it's not, so it's good. But it's good enough, and I've seen that like in school and lots of facets of my life. And yeah, it's a tough place to be as a anxious diligent. But moving on, if I may. Next is productivity pattern. Describes your style in approaching tasks and activities. Which tasks are most likely to attract your attention and effort? This one starts like really small, still pretty small, medium, and then all the way. So the lowest is adaptable action. Wants to see quick results. Prefers straightforward hands-on tasks that can be completed in a short time frame. Second lowest, reliable results. does what is expected in an orderly, systematic manner, wants to follow clear instructions to achieve corrections. That's true. It's about a little less than halfway, which it makes sense to me. Like it fits. I like structure in work, but not overly structured. I need freedom, especially in my own work personally. I need freedom to play around and try things and experiment and grow. So yeah. The second biggest is bright ideas. Most excited when exploring ideas and possibilities. Less interested in taking action. Calling me out. Like starting projects more than finishing them. True, but I also feel guilty anytime I start a project and don't finish it. So, anyways, and the largest is grand plans. Has big, innovative ideas and formulates plans to put those ideas into action. Persistent in chasing even the most ambitious goals. Accurate. Rewards pattern. This one's interesting because I hear a lot about reward pattern, and reward systems are a big struggle within the brain. The dopamine reward system is a big struggle in the brain of in the mind of an ADHD sufferer. I don't know, and someone with ADHD. This describes your attitude towards potential rewards that life has to offer: money, attention, status, power, and achievement. Your pattern describes your interest in achieving these rewards and your style in pursuing them. My lowest, these are all like mid to full blown. So, my lowest is dizzy excitement, enthusiastic but lacking in follow through, impulsive and easily tempted by the promise of pleasure and attention from others, hedonistic and distractible. Second lowest, laid back, has little need for excitement or achievement. Pleasures are low key and often passive, i.e., food, reading, television, uninterested in pursuing status and money or attention. It's not 100%. Well, obviously, it's basically 50%. Steady, no. That's the second highest is focused ambition, desires many things in life, and willing to work hard to get them, seeks fame and fortune, and is persistent in working to increase personal status and achievement. That's accurate. And steady drive, driven by a sense of duty, works towards goals out of a sense of responsibility rather than anticipation of rewards. Persistent even when work is unexciting. And I think that kind of also points to, it just highlights what I said previously about really liking Enneagram type 1s. Next is esteem pattern, similar to the above, about halfway to full on all scales. Describes your attitude toward yourself and others. Your pattern reflects your esteem for yourself and for other people. My lowest, take charge. Prefers to rely on own abilities, sees self as more capable, competent, intelligent than average. Does what is needed without waiting for others. And that's about halfway. So that's pretty accurate. Like 50% of the time, that's me for sure. Another 50, probably not. The second is lone wolf. Second lowest. Sees people as fundamentally weak and untrustworthy. That's kind of cold. But, yeah. Interactions with others are often unpleasant. I wouldn't say that. I just don't. Well, no, I wouldn't say most of them are unpleasant. Most of them are just, I feel apathy towards. They're unnoteworthy and unexciting and obligatory more than anything. Interactions with others are often tends to suffer alone, believing others will be of no help. I think more in some ways, yes, but only through experience do I feel that. More so than that, though, it's a burden complex where I am deathly afraid of being a burden to people. And that's more of why I don't ask others for help. And that concludes my short dive into my results from the Big Five report. So, yeah, like both the Big Five, the Enneagram, So I'll have to find my results on that, and I'll get into it one of these days as well. But I'll probably take a break from that, as the last two have been really long and in depth, and maybe do some lighter podcasts in the future. But yeah, it's very useful tools in understanding oneself, and um, for me personally, it's finding that I'm not that the way that I am and the way that I think and the way that I feel is just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just human. Kind of helps bring me down to earth, while simultaneously encouraging me and lifting me up. Um, and I hope that if you haven't, or if you, even if you have, that you take these dives into to other tests and get to know yourself from a different perspective. Because the more perspectives you have, the better understanding, the more realistic, the more encompassing your understanding of yourself is, as with anyone and anything else. And I found that out through all these tests. And I look forward to, I hope that people will share their results and with the community and with me, and we can dive more into other types and other ideas and other topics more on point and less generalized and less just about me in the future. But thank you. Today's poem is a little longer than the last. Oh, 1 second. I wrote this back in, well, I can't say I wrote it back then, but I saved it in 2014, so it's been a while. As most of these that I'm sharing have been, but just to give you an idea. I haven't named any of them. I don't know why I act like any of them have names. Maybe one or two have names, but this is the poem for today. Don't draw me in, then push me away, or make me question who you'll be today. May my perception be clear of where we stand, for my mind continually wanders into wonderland. Such joy to my day and comfort to my night hast thou recently brought within my sight. How I fall like a boulder down a mountainous hill, daily asking and fantasizing if this could be real. How at your beauty and grace my eyes glaze, so brightly dost you shine, whilst I sing your praise. How every second I spend in your presence makes my heart and soul grow ever addicted to your essence. How foolish I feel, as I have times before, for letting in these thoughts of hope that melt my core.